Hi, and welcome to Practical Pine. This show and every show is dedicated to something that's fun, practical, and usually made out of pine. Today's project is the Too Cool Stool. We'd like to introduce you to our tool of the day. It's called the sliding T-bevel, and you can buy your sliding T-bevel at a home store near you. You're going to see us using the sliding T-bevel to copy and transfer angles from place to place throughout the shop today. Here's a look at the lumber inventory for today's project. You're going to want some 2x6 around for right underneath the seat, and you'll need some 1x4 to take care of the legs. Even if your wood has blemishes, that will be fine because we'll take care of that later on in the process. And these legs should be about 18 inches long. And make sure you've got some plywood scraps around the shop because we're going to turn this into the seat and the octagon that goes down by the legs. We're going to use the compound miter saw to get this lumber down to size, and then we'll probably go get the sliding T-bevel to make sure that we've got the angle correct, and we're going to copy this angle onto our power tools. Whenever you're setting up power tools, it's important that you unplug the power tool and turn the power off so there's no chance of that tool turning on while you're working. As it turns out, the magic number for this project is 15. That's 15 degrees for all of the bevel cuts that will be made today. This particular piece of wood will have all of the legs attached to it, and we'll be screwing it right underneath the seat of the stool. Because your stool has 4 legs, it's going to be very important to cut that first leg accurately. That's why we have the sliding T-bevel to make sure that the 15-degree angle stays true. And you'll want this board to be about 16 inches long because that's the height of the average folding chair. And for those of you that know about Murphy's Law, if anything can go wrong, it probably will. And you can see that there's a screw here that's going to give us some trouble as we cut our second leg. It's best that you take time out to remove that screw because there's no sense in ruining a good saw blade. Whenever you're cutting multiple pieces the same length, it's important to make a jig, so we will use the needle nose vice grip to set up a jig. We've unplugged the saw and shut off the power, and that way we can cut all of our boards at exactly the same length. And because it's a stool, you're going to want something round to sit on, so look around the shop for something you can use. That sand bucket was probably too small, and this drywall bucket looks like it's going to be too big. So the best thing to do is probably get out your compass from 10th grade geometry and get the measuring tape and find yourself a 5.5-inch radius or maybe 6 inches, and you can draw a perfect circle in less than 30 seconds. You will definitely want to keep track of the center of that circle, so I've marked it here with an X, and then I stick the compass point in one more time for good measure. Before we take this perfect circle over to the bandsaw, you want to get this piece of lumber down to a workable size, so we're going to use the table saw and cut as close as we can to the pencil line. Depending on your tool inventory, you can cut out the circle with the portable jigsaw or the bandsaw. When you're finished with your circle, you may notice a small bump where you started and finished your cut. You can solve this problem by grabbing the wood file. We only have one more piece to fabricate, and that's the octagon that goes at the base of the stool. So you want to get out your plywood and you want to get it down to a workable size. You also want to tilt your saw blade. Be sure to unplug the power tool and use your sliding T-bevel to match the angle. You can slide your fence over to about 10 inches and you'll want to cut all 4 sides at the bevel. With our final cut here, this project is nearly ready for assembly. So here we'll do a dry fit on the workbench before we get our drywall screws ready. Today we chose an 1 5/8" drywall screws, and we'll be using a cordless screw gun for assembly. This particular tool allows us to pre-drill and countersink a hole so we never split the wood during assembly. And so with all 4 legs in place, we're now ready to customize the octagon that goes at the base of the stool. Prior to cutting, I marked these 2 boards with an X, so when I put them back together, they'd be in exactly the same formation they were earlier. All you have to do now is pre-drill and attach your base with screws. And with all 4 legs attached, this is your last chance to sand off the rough edges before attaching the seat to the stool. If you remember that X from earlier, we're going to use that now because it's very important. You're going to want the middle of your seat to be exactly in the middle of your stool. An X marks the spot. When gluing and screwing 2 surfaces together, it's best to rely on a thin application of wood glue to help make the seal. Hey, what do you know? Now your stool is just too cool. Fill in all the screw holes with wood compound and maybe make a taller stool to hold your plants. That's all the time we have today on Practical Pine. Thanks for joining us. Watch again as we build something fun, practical, and probably out of pine.